There goes the driver again. As soon as we start, something has to buzz it. Are we good to go? Are we ready? All right, so we're going to talk about right now how you trim ribs to the St. Louis style ribs that they use in competition barbecue. Now you can also do this at home. Just because it has the word competition in front of it doesn't mean you can't use this at the house, because there's a lot of tricks that are very applicable if you're cooking in the backyard that'll make you be a rock star there too. All right, so this is where I've just pulled it out of that cryovac package that it comes in, and I've drained off the schmoosh, which we've talked about a lot. When you buy these big racks of meat from the wholesale clubs or wherever you get them, a lot of times they're in that cryovac and they've got that liquid. You don't want the liquid, so get rid of that. All right, so this is the main portion of the ribs. Back here is where you're going to get those, this is towards the back of the animal. All right, let's see. I'm going to try to contain the mess on my baking sheet. But I wanted to show you, when you get in here, this is where you can see the actual ribs themselves, right? And this is more part of the trimmed, would be toward the loin, wouldn't it? All right, so we're going to start actually on the other side. But what we're going to do, you can see it on this end better, but I'm going to flip it over so I can feel it better on the other side. You're looking for the longest rib in the bunch, because you're going to make your first trim about right here. You're going to be above the bone. So you're going to think at first you're going to go right through the bone and you're going to hit a bone. You're not. So this one is the longest one. So I want to find him on the other side. Turn it over. And so, right in here. All right, halfway guessing in here. So what you want to do, nope, I feel it, there it is you can also kind of see the run of fat on this one where it goes right about where you're going to trim. So you want to make a straight line and making sure, nope, I'm a little low, so let me come in here just a bit higher. What you want to do is, if you can, come in with one smooth cut across here. I'm going to move him over to the, it's a little too big for my cutting board. You know, we've talked about how competition people always work outside. It's too damn cold to work outside today. And it's 45 degrees warmer than it was the other day. Oh my gosh. Daryl, you said it got down to what, -7, and you were still shooting outside?
Whoa.
Well, that's because Daryl is an insane person. And I told him, he was talking about, you know, you've got a television show, you got to keep going. And I said, you're perfectly right. And I would have been going right into the house, showing y'all how to do something in front of the fire. All right, so I've got this giant knife, which actually scares me, but it's the sharpest one we've got. All right, so here's where I've got my bone tips. Let's move to my smaller knife because it's easier for me to work with. We're going to come right down. Oh, of course, I've got a straggler on the one that I want to show you. Right here is the cartilage I was talking about. Can you see? You're going to run into this stuff. Don't try to go hot dogging it. The ideal thing is to make one long cut. But I personally feel that if you start trying to get a little too fast, you're going to mess it up. Or mess yourself up, which is even worse. Don't do that. Okay, now, I've heard a lot of people, I've done a lot of looking around online, and a lot of people get rid of this, and we don't get rid of that. If I had a meat grinder, that's where that would go. Frankly, I'm going to wrap that up in the smoker, and I'm going to stick it right alongside this rack of ribs. That's the chef's portion. That's what the chefs get to work on. All right, so normally what you have back here when you turn him over, let me get rid of this. You're actually making a nice little neat package out of your ribs. Normally you have a flap that's right here. You would go ahead and trim that flap off. This one's already been pretty well trimmed. I am going to come in here in a minute and get rid of a little bit of this stuff. But the second thing I want to show you is this, okay? This is yucky is what this is. This is a membrane, and there's actually two of them. There's one right on top of the other. And the kind of the tricky part, you want to take off the top one, but not the bottom one. And I've done this. For a while, I couldn't figure out why in the world my ribs always fell apart, and it was because I was removing the entire membrane, okay? So you don't want to remove the whole thing. You do want to find, let's see, a butter knife. There it goes. You can do it with a butter knife. I've heard a guy say to use an oyster knife. I actually have, well, let's see if I can get it. This only happens when you're live. I do want the paper towel. Daryl's trying to make motions so that we don't know that he's in the room. He was trying to hand me a paper towel. Problem is, I can't get under it to begin to grab the paper towel thing.
Get the paper towel and grab it. That little piece you got in your hand right
Yeah,
there.
but the second membrane is right there too.
It'll separate that piece you had in the corner there.
Just
It'll-
shh,
Yes, ma'am.
do your own thing. Trust me. If you try to grab the silly thing with the paper towel, you're gonna rip the whole thing off, and you won't even realize there were two pieces to it. There we go. See? That's what happens when you get it with a paper towel. See, for a long time though, Daryl, I didn't know there was. Aha. Maybe. Let's see. See, the theory is you get a paper towel, and you get traction, and then sometimes, get another piece of paper towel. Sometimes you just can't get the flipping thing. You proud of me? I watched my language. See, that is what I can't get my hands under. I've done 1,000 of these and it popped right off. That's the joy of live television, isn't it? All right, there we go. Now, in theory, you get it at the right place. There we go. And it'll all come off in one piece. You have to kind of finesse it a little bit. There we go. Now, Daryl, this is what I was talking about.
Whoa, hell yeah.
You don't want to take that one off,
Wow.
though.
Wow.
Because if you take that one off, your ribs will just kind of, they'll taste good, but they're going to all fall apart. You won't get that big, pretty slab.
Wow, one big piece, Jan Charles. Wow. Man,
There we go.
that was awesome.
Redemption. Jeez. What you have to go through sometimes. All right. Now, most of this, you just want to get rid of those little bits of fat. You don't have to go insane on it. But any of this stuff that just, if it's not pretty, you don't want it on there. There's fat that runs, you can see it. It's everywhere. This is not exactly what you'd call a piece of meat that is marbled. And you do have a good bit of connective tissue in here, which, because you're going on a low cooking temperature over a long period of time, all that connective tissue renders down through the meat. It's not really the fat that you're after. A lot of people think that. They think that you have to have all the fat in there to keep it tender. Well, that's not true. On pieces like this, with the connective tissue, you have to give it the time for the connective tissue to render out. That's where you get tender. All right, Daryl, I'm not going to go insane on this. But spend as much time on it as you think you need. I've seen them with big fat pockets. I've seen them with small ones. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, this is going to be, no, it's this way. We're going to go this way. This is what we're going to hang on to. But we're going to leave them all on there except for trimming that one little piece at the end, right? So we're going to take off, I think, just here. I'm going to come right down like this with my little baby knife, not your giant machete. Use the knife that you like and you feel comfortable with. Mine's not as sharp as I'd like it to be, but it's small so I can control it. This thing would be if I was going to go make a big great horror movie. Just what I'm doing with that. Now, at the house, again, hang on to this piece. There's a little piece of bone in it, but make yourself a little package right here. And you have a meat grinder. This is what can go in your meat grinder, and you make the best sausage you ever had in your life, or you make burgers, or you make meatloaf, you do all kinds of wonderful stuff. Or you just smoke it and keep it all to yourself and nobody will know you had it. And then you go to the dinner table and you're like, oh no, I'm all right, I don't need much. And you've already eaten half the pig back in the kitchen. All right, so Daryl, how we doing? I got a little lumpy there, but other than that, we've got a really nice square package right here. Do you want me to take this off?
Yeah, I tell you, that fat right there won't do you much good.
What about this thing right here? Are we keeping him?
Let me see what you got there. Yeah, looking good. I'll tell you what. if
I don't trust you with that.
If I was you, I'd turn this over and like get right about here.
Take him off too?
Yeah, I'd take that big bow off right there. Yeah. But now she likes a big rack, folks. I'm talking about a huge rack.
Why are you trimming him down that much?
Just to get the straight line in the.
So you just want it to look pretty?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make it look.
Isn't this the difference between what they call, all right, wait a minute, there's Kansas City and Kansas style? Is that, did I make that up?
That's St. Louis style.
St. Louis style and Kansas City
yeah,
style.
there you go.
Whether you take that one little lumpy thing off, I tell you.
Looking good.
All right, so do we want to trim him?
Yeah.
You realize you're going to gouge the top of it if you trim that off.
Yeah, it's called a shiner. It wouldn't hurt. Let me take a little bit of that off.
All right, define a shiner. I thought a shiner was if you pull him out of the package, you've got a shiner, either if you've got a bruise on the meat or if a bone is showing on the top of the
Yeah,
rack.
that's exactly what a shiner is, and it's done by the people who are packing it.
Right. And you don't
so-
really want that. So if you've
No.
got that, find a different rack.
Right.
But if I trim this, I'm gonna make one.
No, you're going to get that off the top where rub will adhere. Right now, you can't get any rub on there. Plus also, if you look at the overall thickness from one end to the other, when you're talking competition barbecue, you want it to be one steady thickness because the thicker side will cook at a different rate.
Now we've got an inherent problem with that, right? And it's the fact that it's just not. So what we were talking about before is how many bones there are in a rack of ribs. And anywhere between 12 and we got 14 in this one because I counted twice. You only turn in how many? 10?
8.
8. All right, so you're giving yourself an automatic. These guys are going to take one for the team, aren't they? Yeah, they're gonna go overcook. Now, why would you leave them on there if it would be a different thickness to cook at a different rate if you know ahead of time it's going to be sacrificed?
Well, the last 3 bones on both sides are going to probably burn through.
Okay.
And then the center 3 or 4 bones is all that you're going to be able to use for competition anyway, because those will be protected from burning through, and they always end up being the best. But the biggest thing you got to look for is straight bones. Are the bones straight? So when you put them in that box, they're not, curving to the side. They're just straight up and down bones.
So if you're only going to use the center portion, you would actually, if you're going to competition, you would actually trim up 2 racks.
Yes.
Minimum of 2 racks.
2 racks is the basic requirement for a FBA competition.
Okay, define the initials you just said.
Florida Barbecue Association.
Got it. See? You got to teach me all these terms. I don't know. That's the most ridiculous knife I've ever seen in my life. There's a time it was a little too big. All right. So how we doing?
Doing good, looks good. There was a great trim in there. Good trim to work.
Now I have a question again.
Okay.
You've got some silver skin on the top here. Do we want to get rid of it?
Is there a silver skin?
Look.
Oh yes, silver skin. That's cool. Actually, what happened to those Smithfield ribs? They left another cut of meat piece across there. There was something that wasn't ribs. That's what you just took off of it.
Was that a loin piece?
Probably a loin piece, yeah.
Well, let's take a look. No, that wasn't it. It was this piece.
Okay.
See, look at that. This came off right about here, and there was a significant fat pocket underneath.
Yeah.
That probably when they trimmed it, that got cut from the top, you think?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
That dare not be a bad pork chop. Okay, so we're getting rid of this piece of silver skin. And this normally would not be here? I don't remember seeing this on too many of the ribs I've
It's
done.
because that extra piece was present that shouldn't have been there.
So I still want to keep it as even as I can, right? So you don't want to go gouging it out.
Right.
And I know you like those great big knives, but you do have a lot more control with the smaller ones.
Yeah, that 4-inch knife right there is excellent for trimming. Full by the size, that little knife there can do everything you need to do on a piece of barbecue.
Except maybe cut through that giant piece of bone that you cut through a minute ago. Okay, now I'm gonna leave a trench if I cut this out. You want me to leave it on there?
No, I'd leave that on.
All right, and so what about this little pocket here? Yeah, it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
Take it off. A lot of that'll melt anyway. By the time the ribs get done, it won't be there. Pork fat melts, beef fat gels. So,
Now, when you came over here and we had those briskets,
oh,
and we trimmed off those briskets, and we had probably 4 pounds of beef lard, right?
Mhm.
I put those in the oven in a big metal bowl at about 10 or 25 degrees, and I let them go for about 6 hours. And I got 2 quarts of the most beautiful rendered beef lard you've ever seen, which I then turned around and I made big tortillas, the big beef pies for Christmas Eve. I made the crust out of the beef lard, and on the inside I had beef and minced pork and bacon. I don't care if it gels or not. Tastes good. All right, so other than these, I will go insane if I go over and try to get every little piece of this. Now, do you want me to
no,
to
it's
keep
good.
going?
That's
Okay.
good. That's
So what we're doing, you took it to the whole Kansas City style, right?
Mhm.
No, that's wrong. I got it backwards.
That's St. Louis cut.
St. Louis style.
Mhm.
I did the Kansas City and left the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
thing up there,
Right.
but you want to take it to a square, like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't want to keep all that flavor.
Yeah, we do. We want to cook it, and
All right. Okay.
so now we want to get an injection together.
And then no skirt, all even. It's as flat as it's gonna be at this point. And we're gonna put an injection together, right? And we're
Yeah.
gonna shoot him up.
Try to shoot it in between the bones if we can.
You don't trust me with one of those injector needles again.
Whoa.
All right, so give me a minute, and I'll go pull all this stuff together. I've got to wash my hands, right? And we'll get ready to inject him, and then to rub him, and get him on the fire. And the competition folks don't do this, but I have a little mock action that I'm going to throw at it. And we're going to do everything you need to know all of the different steps in competition, or how to just make all your neighbors want to come over and hang out at your house if you're doing this in the backyard. How's that?